Step back, James Harden, right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey.
Joel Embiid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap Podcast. Right after the Labor Day weekend, Sean and I are back at work. Sean, how are you feeling, brother?
Yeah, can't complain. Donovan Mitchell trade chip finally landed, so excited to jump in and talk about that. Feels like the kind of checks of the NBA offseason are finally being crossed off, and the things that we're waiting on are finally hitting their conclusions, whatever it may be. So NFL season right here, NBA season right behind us. So things are turning up in the sports world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the dog days of summer are over. Following Labor Day weekend, it's time to go. You got football this Thursday. Obviously the big day on Sunday. We had a lot of college football this weekend, a lot of good games. So it's back in action. It feels nice to be back, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a very long summer. But obviously, before we even get going to talk about that, check out the Pick Swap Media page. Check out the YouTube and everything. We got everything covered coming up into this new season. We got through this long off season and we're full throttle forward. So check out everything that's going on in the Pick Swap Media group, and we're gonna get into it today. So you mentioned it in your in the intro. Donovan Mitchell gets traded to the Cavs. Surprising to a lot of people, surprising to myself and you as well. So just give me kind of the rundown, what you thought, what you thought about the trade as a whole, and where that puts the Cavs going forward.
Yeah, super surprising to me. I feel like it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he would end up with the Knicks, just because there'd been so much buzz, so much back and forth. Mitchell seemed to want to go to the Knicks. The Knicks seemed to want him. And at the end of the day, it feels like they kind of undersold it and didn't realize that they were competing against some legitimate offers like the Cavs had. I think the Cavs snuck in there and weren't really perceived as a legitimate threat for them, but they absolutely should have been based on the assets they had and the state the team is in. So kind of out of nowhere, the trade dropped, and exactly what it was the Cavs getting Donovan Mitchell for Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton on a sign and trade, 3 unprotected firsts, which is 2025, 27, and 29, and 2 first-round pick swaps in 26 and 28. So definitely a decent haul. Danny Ainge gets his draft picks. We're seeing the Cavs just kind of catapult from the fun young team that we saw last year, a team that exceeded expectations in a major way last year and really looked to be building something special. Took that kind of just fast forward button, added Donovan Mitchell, and now I do think they are real deal contenders in the East. So I'm a little nervous about how things stack up. The East is going to be very, very tough this year. So what were your thoughts, James?
Yeah, at first it almost seemed like, I think there's two ways to look at it really. The Cavs paid a lot. They paid the price for a guy of Mitchell's caliber. I don't know if we're fully putting him in the superstar category right now, but that definitely, I think the trade was I don't want to say equal, but I think it was a solid trade. Like, a lot of people were saying they fleeced them. When I look at it on the Cavs side, Agbaji, good, solid young prospect. He was going into his rookie year, but he plays shooting guard, right? So, those minutes are eaten up. I like Lauri Markkanen a lot. I think he's a really solid player. But again, like, Markkanen's not starting for them. You have Mobley and Allen, an all-star and one of the best young players in the game. So, like, giving up a big in Markkanen's position, it is what it is. And Colin Sexton plays the same position as their best player, and Darius Garland. So he wasn't going to be doing much for this team going forward. It was kind of a breakup. It was already set up going into that trade as it was. So I don't know. I think the Cavs did a really good job of finding their way in there, and that's how those type of caliber teams compete. You build within the draft, you build within your rooms, and you capitalize on trades like this. So I thought the Cavs did a really good job in that position where they were.
Yeah, definitely. It's very funny that the Knicks come out looking like the loser in all of this. But for the Cavs specifically, the Garland thing was so weird. Not the Garland. The Sexton thing was so weird. I thought it was very interesting how Garland definitely took his game to a whole nother level last year as the primary initiator, the guy that ran the show. But there's like a category in their offense where they just needed more self-creation. I think Garland is a pass-first guy out of instinct. I think that's his best asset. I think he's going to benefit with Donovan Mitchell. But Sexton and Garland just didn't seem to be the ideal backcourt duo. There definitely seemed to be some sort of bad blood or just the Cavs not fully buying into what Sexton was selling, because even this offseason, he was a restricted free agent, and there was always kind of the foregone conclusion that he'd be coming back to the Cavs, but never anything in writing. And I guess this is obviously what they're waiting for to see this materialize, but it just kind of odd how that played out. So I think he's going to put up some nice empty stats and out in Utah.
Definitely.
he'll have his chance to shine, see how that shakes out. But I really do like this from the Cavs. And one of the things we talked about with the Knicks is my concern with like a Mitchell and Jalen Brunson backcourt was how just what a defensive liability that is. Each of those guys are so small. Garland and Mitchell, I mean, not that either one of those guys are particularly great defenders either. Garland, I would consider better than Mitchell. But the thing that I buy in about it is having Jared Allen and Evan Mobley behind him. Like Mobley specifically is legitimately has a chance to be like a generational defender, and the things that he can do on the perimeter, protecting the paint. He really is just gifted on that side of the ball. And also like you're sacrificing the picks, but they have the core in place. Like Garland's 22, Evan Mobley's younger than that. They got guys that these guys taking their steps are what the developmental process is going to be. Like you don't necessarily need to add more than that. It's now watching these guys grow together, which I think is very cool. I think I have the Cavs pretty locked in as a top 6 seed in the East this year, which is I don't think you can really argue that with how much they've put this together and how legitimate I think that team's going to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. Their average age, I saw it was as of yesterday, it was like 22.6 or something on that roster. So young. So like you don't even need to worry about those draft picks. And I mean, all said and done, it's 3 full picks and then 2 pick swaps. So like, yeah, you're losing a good amount. But you know, you are where you are, and you kind of put yourself in that position as it going into this offseason. And you know, Sexton was rumored all over the place. I saw the Mavericks, you know, was rumored pretty heavily throughout the offseason. I also saw, I think it was Chicago or something. It really doesn't matter. But you know, Sexton was as good as gone, and adding Mitchell in this situation, I do, you know, the defensive issues that may come up with a Garland Mitchell backcourt, just size wise, there's always going to be mismatches on the court. But you know, like you said, having Jared Allen, who's an All NBA defender at his position, and Evan Mobley, who's you know ridiculous and what he's able to do, I do really like it. The East is crazy, man. I was looking at a graphic of the top 9 teams, and it was like one of these teams is going to have to, you know, be knocked out. They're not going to make the playoffs, which is pretty crazy because this is the best the East has been, I think, probably in our entire lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look top to bottom. Like we've talked a bunch about the Celtics and Bucks, which are obviously real contenders. We got the Nets, who are the major question mark, but the talent's clearly there. We've talked so much about the Sixers and everything that they got. Beyond that, I mean, the Cavs now have emerged. The Hornets are growing. The Raptors are clearly putting the piece together. The Heat, like all of these teams have like a lot of pros going for them and building in the right direction. I agree. This is the deepest that this side of the conference has been in a long time, and in our whole lifetimes for sure. So it is going to be a tight race. It's concerning on how just stacked up the East is. And I don't know. It's going to be a bloodbath to see who gets out on top this year. And real quick, one more thing on the Cavs. Like one of the concerns also with the Knicks going all in on this is, especially if they had to include Barrett and especially like everything else, they pretty much were emptying out the clip to get Donovan Mitchell. And that's kind of what they were rolling with, which why I think they were kind of in the right here is because like I don't think emptying the clip for Donovan Mitchell is the final piece, and I don't think he's that type of guy that takes you to that level. But looking at the Cavs in this situation, like they have a core behind him. Like we just talked about the starting lineup a bunch, but they still got guys like Kevin Love still there, Ricky Rubio still there, Karis LeVert still there. Guys, Robin Lopez, they signed with him this offseason. Guys that can rotate in, play quality minutes, and just kind of like do their job, fill in. So I do really like what they're building, and I'm a little scared about them moving forward, I will say.
It's always like it's the Cavs though. So like again, not like I think they've done a really good job with what they've had, and you know, Darius Garland is like one of my favorite young players in the game. Evan Mobley as well. Like I think those 2 guys are incredible. But like you know, like when you say Donovan Mitchell, like Donovan Mitchell is what he is, and I again maybe this is my bias. I don't like Donovan Mitchell as a basketball player all that much, but like he's very good. But like is Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell like a number 1 that could be a number 1 scorer in a playoff situation? Like, are they really going to carry a team in that situation? Like, do you believe that? You think Donovan Mitchell is that guy or no?
I think together they are. I think their weaknesses and strengths overlap in a way that I think is going to work very well. I think Garland specifically, when you watch Cavs game last year, there was a whole lot of like standing around and needing him to be that primary creator, which I don't think he really is. I think he's a pass first guy who still has creation ability, can still hit some shots, a very good player still, but I don't think he's like a A1 killer. Donovan Mitchell, on the opposite hand, like the Jazz was very much stand around, watch Donovan Mitchell space the floor, and you either get an open 3 or let him shoot 10 for 29 was kind of his role with them. I don't think he's a great passer. I think he had moments where he had a couple assists. Overall, his efficiency splits are significantly better than people give him credit for, especially in the postseason. He's an elite shot creator, which I think is what the Cavs are missing. I think adding that to the recipe of what Garland has, what the complementary pieces have, and that this is a team. So as much as I maybe don't completely buy into Donovan Mitchell as like a lead A guy, I think he checks the boxes for what the Cavs are missing. I think him and Garland in the backcourt together is like a legitimate, like a contending team backcourt.
All right, fair enough. I personally I don't like Donovan Mitchell, so like the bias kind of bleeds in there. And I'm interested to see just how it goes. It's always interesting seeing guys like that where Donovan Mitchell, like you said, he's a primary creator on his team. For him to be effective, he does have to take a lot of shots. And seeing him kind of blend in with a team like that, I think it fits well. Again, like Evan Mobley's not taking a ton of shots. Jared Allen, obviously not either. So it is Darius Garland and whoever they may play at small forward. Because like Harris Ford's that would make them very small in the front court or in the back court, and then Okoro, whoever it may be, they have to figure that out from there. What do you think about like the Jazz getting less for Mitchell than they did for Gobert?
Yeah, interesting. It's a surprise to me. I think the Gobert trade is kind of just like a once in a lifetime kind of like oversell on that. Like I think that's what messed up the Kevin Durant trade, because like that was the bar that was set and everyone's like, well, no shot, because if that's what Rudy Gobert is worth, then I'm not paying whatever Kevin Durant's price tag is. So I think that was just kind of like a once in a blue moon offer that blew them away. They had to take. I definitely, if you had pinned me down like prior to this offseason, like I would not have guessed that whatsoever. Very interesting. Very strange how it shakes out like that, but who knows? Very crazy from the Jazz too, to go from trading both their all-stars in an offseason, and they succeeded in having their kind of full rebuild. I still think there's going to be a ton of scraps that come out of it, and there are some win now veterans that will be there for the taking on the Jazz. So I expect them to continue wheeling and dealing. I don't know if that's anything the Sixers will stick their nose in. I wrote an article that should be dropping pretty soon, kind of looking at guys that make sense, and it's hard from a financial aspect. A lot of them are going to need Tobias involved for it to really be possible, especially like Bojan Bogdanovic, who I think would be terrific, but just the hoops that it would take to get these guys makes it difficult. Jared Vanderbilt's an underrated guy that I think could be worth a flyer on and wouldn't take that much of a price, but there is going to be a fire sale in Utah continuing for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen a lot of the Jordan Clarksons. I even saw somebody say that the Sixers should trade Tobias Harris for Bogdanovic and Conley. And I was like, yo, I know Tobias has struggled here, man, but no chance. I don't even want to say he struggled. Maybe he just hasn't lived up to expectations, but like, no, come on, man. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be some guys out there, some stragglers, but like who really wants Mike Conley? Nobody. He's probably, I would bet that he would stay there this upcoming season. I bet you Clarkson and Bogdanovic find a new home. I do really like Jared Vanderbilt. And I'm glad that you mentioned him, because I think just like archetype wise, who he is as a player fits a need with the Sixers. Obviously, they got a little bit better in that wing depth this offseason, and they've done some due diligence in that area. But like Vanderbilt just adds another like lengthy athletic body to run and gun in a fast break, and also just like guard a few positions on the perimeter as well. So I like Jared Vanderbilt, and I would be in on him, but I don't really see the way for them to make anything happen for like Clarkson, Bogdanovic. I saw a lot of people say Rudy Gay, like, whatever on Rudy Gay. I don't really care. If he's here, he's here. But like, I'm never going to be like, oh, the Sixers should go get Rudy Gay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Rudy Gay is probably one of the more gettable out of them, just financially. Like, Clarkson's around 13 mil cap hit that you got to find a way to match. And keep in mind, like, packaging Furkan, who we're going to talk about a bunch in a minute, and then that gets you to about 9 mil. So like, you're not in quite the same range. Same with Clarkson. Clarkson's around that 13 mil. Boyan's around 20 mil. I think it's 19.3. I'm pretty sure it is what it is. So like, they're just not kind of numbers that match up, right? You're going to probably need to get a third team involved. I wrote up a cool little trade that I would love for it to happen, but I don't know how the odds of it, but a 3-team trade with the Mavs and the Jazz, which landed Reggie Bullock here and a couple of the Jazz pieces as well, something like that. But a lot of these, you need to kind of get Tobias's contract involved, which I don't know if these are the type of players that Moore is going to be willing to kind of include that, just because of, who knows. I kind of would like to see this roster a little bit, and that's kind of a final piece, your kind of trade asset going in. So as much as it's a great idea in theory, I don't see the numbers lining up the way I would hope, but Daryl Morey is always one to surprise us, so you never know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with the like massive pause that got put on this offseason for like whatever it was a month, like we're finally seeing, this Donovan Mitchell trade kind of I feel like rounds out the offseason like you had mentioned. Like this is kind of the last thing that was expected to happen, maybe not necessarily to the Cavs, but a Donovan Mitchell trade in general. Like people kind of expected that before the upcoming season. We still like there's still a lot of time before the season. You're like a month and a half out. Um, and like there's still that first like 3 or 4 weeks of the NBA season where things like this happen, where like lingering rumors or lingering things from the offseason play themselves out in that first couple of months. So I think, guys like Bogdanovich, maybe, he starts the season in Utah. I think there's still a good chance that he's gone before February. Same thing with like uh, Clarkson, maybe they'll keep Vanderbilt. He's a
Yeah.
younger guy that could stick there. But yeah, it's Jazz going full rebuild mode. It's kind of strange. But I guess it was time for them. And the tanking for picks, man, the attitude on that has changed a lot since our time there, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I tweeted out the other day, the 76ers made, rebuilding cool, and it's changed the NBA forever, and I kinda
Uh,
stand by that. Like, I get it's always been something, like, this isn't a new concept, the Sixers didn't invent it by any means, but to kind of brand it and run with it the way that the Sixers have, that really has never been done before, and you see teams doing it all the time. Like, look at the public perception of what the Thunder are doing. Look at the public
yeah.
perception of what the Jazz are doing, and I get like there's extremes to this, and the Sixers absolutely took it there. So I think that's really where the criticism lies, is just how intentionally the Sixers were pushing those boundaries. But at the end of the day, like maybe they're doing it in more efficient fashion than the Sixers did, but it's the same concept. So I don't know. It is a double standard. It feels like.
Yeah, and I mean these guys are shameless. It's very shameless what they're doing. Like, Ainge was very clear in his ways of saying, "I don't want players, I want picks," and that is quite the opposite of aggressive and very intentional in the way he was going about this offseason. So like, you know, the Sixers didn't get that same grace that these teams are getting, but it's the past. I guess let it wash down. The Sixers are in a position to compete. So I guess to kind of round out the Cavaliers conversation and this offseason kind of conversation, like I know you said it puts the Cavs in the top six. Like I don't even think you ended up mentioning Brooklyn going through all of that, and it seems like that team's going to be full and ready to go at the start of the year. After that crazy offseason. So like maybe the Cavs are in that top six. Like, how do you see the Eastern Conference playing out? Obviously, way too early to predict anything, but just in general, how do you see kind of almost a power ranking of those 8 teams?
Yeah, I still unfortunately have the Celtics in the top spot, defending Eastern Conference champions, made to the finals. I think the addition of Malcolm Brogdon takes them to another level. Their biggest weakness was point guard, and that's what he's going to provide for them. So unfortunately, I have them number one. The Bucks I have number two. The injury to Chris Middleton, it gets talked about a lot, but I do think that was a difference maker in the playoffs last year. And if he's there, it's a whole different story. And Giannis is really just unstoppable. The things he's doing, he looks terrific with Greece
Yeah,
overseas right now. Beyond that is where I think those two I have kind of cemented. If I'm putting like a tier, I have those two as my top two. In the mix, moving here is where I kind of have Sixers, Nets, Cavs. I think those are probably my next three. I'm probably dropping the Sixers below. I'm gonna go. I know I'm keeping them at three. I'll go Sixers, Nets, Cavs in that order. But I still have a hard time buying into this Nets team just because I think it's so
yeah,
bizarre. The Heat, I don't want to fully leave out because they find a way to surprise me every year. But I think the sixth seed is looking closer. I would not enjoy matching up with them in the first round of the playoffs if that's how things shake out. That's probably who I have at six. Probably Raptors at seven, and it's tight, man. Like all these teams are like I could see a lot of this shaking out differently too. So that's probably my preliminary top seven, but I could be swayed on a couple of these.
yeah. I think I agree with most of those as well. I don't know, man. And the Raptors are good. Like you can throw the Raptors in there. Um, you're just looking at a whole bunch of teams that can compete. Like I think even a team like Detroit. Like Detroit's not very good right now, but they have a really good young, promising core. So like, what if they make some noise? I think the Hornets got worse this offseason.
The Bridges thing.
Boston, yeah, the Bridges thing really put them in a tough position. And then on top of that, they've just like done nothing. And outside of LaMelo Ball, they haven't seen a lot of like growth from the other young guys in that team. So they're just in a weird spot. They have pay a lot of money to Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, and those guys are fine. They just don't do a lot for them. So I don't know, man. It's going to be a weird season. I think there's going to be a team that falls off. Maybe that's Brooklyn. Maybe that's Miami. It's one of the two. I personally would love to see Miami in the first round. I want to beat their ass, man.
Yeah.
They're not good. They got worse, don't you think?
I mean, they keep talking about like Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler. All these guys are going talking about how they have the same team. They're just running it back. It's like, dude, PJ Tucker isn't a nobody that you guys lost. Like he was very important to what you guys did in the postseason, and I think that's being brushed under the rug a decent bit of like just how much he played a role in their postseason last year. I've said it before, but I think if not the second, definitely in the top three most impactful players for what he did. Jimmy Butler was obviously on another level, the guy that carried that team for the most part, but I think Tucker's become undervalued for how valuable he was to that team.
Don't forget that they brought back Udonis Haslem. That's huge for
Oh
them.
yeah, news of the offseason. It's so
Dude,
great.
that's the biggest joke in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm so over the Udonis Haslem thing. It's like, dude, just coach, just like be their coach. I don't know if it's the pay. I'm sure he gets more on a minimum as a veteran to sit on the bench like that. But it's like, dude, you've played less minutes. Like I love shout out Trail Bro, dude, for all the tweets like comparing the guys that have played more minutes. Like it's like Vince Carter's played more minutes in the NBA since when I forget all the deadlines.
Yeah.
But check those out. But just like so crazy that this guy is soaking up a roster spot and like. The last time I can genuinely remember him getting on the court was fighting with Dwight Howard against the Sixers 2 years ago. Like he just doesn't really play, and it's very crazy that he makes it like a big deal. Like the Heat like sent people to his house to present him the offer and stuff. It's like, what are we doing here?
It's Udonis Haslem, man. Like whatever. In that game that he fought with Dwight Howard, that he played in that season, entire season, 2019, 20 or was that 2020, 2021?
Yeah, that was 2 years
So
ago.
in that season, Udonis hasn't played 3 minutes. 3 minutes in the full season in one game. That was the game. He entered one singular game during that entire season. It was that game against the Sixers. He got ejected 3 minutes later. So that tells you enough about what Udonis Haslem does for them, and they made it a whole ordeal. So whatever. I laughed at the Heat this offseason. Like PJ Tucker is, maybe he's not the centerpiece to a team, but he's pretty damn important. And I don't even know what Miami is doing. If the Sixers did nothing, like they did nothing this year, I'd be pretty disappointed. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. But we can kind of shift gears here. I know you mentioned Greece and what Giannis has been doing in FIBA with Greece. Have we seen what Furkan Korkmaz has been up to in Turkey playing in FIBA? He got into a little scuffle this weekend. There was a lot of aftermath and things that some pretty surprising things coming from the FIBA and what Turkey's saying what happened with Furkan. So can you give us a little update on what happened with what's been going on in the world of Furkan Korkmaz this weekend?
Yeah, very crazy stuff. So we've talked all offseason about like the Sixers needing a dog and looking for that guy when the toughness is. And who would have thought that Furkan Korkmaz has had it in him all along? So it started with a hard foul of him driving to the basket, getting smacked, going down pretty hard, getting up, getting in the guy's face, led to a little altercation, him spitting at him, going back and forth. And then he got tossed. And then on the way to the locker room, Furk was jumped by 3 Georgian players. So the names did get become public, which is Gogo Patazi, who plays for the Pacers, Tanika Shenglin, and Duda Sendazi are the 3 guys that seem to have had an interaction with Furk in the locker room post game. Apparently, the police were also involved, and in a way that Furk did not speak highly of. Let me get his full quote here, and then I have another quote that just is awesome from him.
It's so great.
Yeah. So this is Furk's retelling of it. He said, quote, when I was walking to the tunnel, our conditioning guy was with me. As soon as we walked out of the tunnel and were trying to reach the locker room, I saw 3 Georgian players alongside 2 security guards running at us. We started throwing punches at each other. That's basically what happened. It was like a street fight. There was no talk or conversation. People just came at us and were trying to attack us. Of course, we reacted and tried to defend ourselves. Exactly what are we going to do as men? I also think it's a security problem, but I don't know if it's a security problem or if they just have showed tolerance to their players. We understand that they're at home, but this is unacceptable. What happens on the court is fine, but we should talk more about what happens off the court. So definitely a whole lot of uproar. Turkey wants to see all the cameras and said that they would pull themselves from the tournament if that doesn't occur, the step-by-step, frame-by-frame of what happened back there. But absolute wild scenes.
Yeah, dude, what is going on? And this is like national news too. So I'm sure, for people outside the area, Furkan is not a household name by any means. And this turns up and this is insanity. I feel bad for the guy. That's a terrible thing to have happen, especially, playing for your country, trying to do what's right. Obviously, he got a little upset at what happened on the court, which, again, I love. I don't know if you saw Mike Scott and his quote
Yeah.
tweet of it. It was very, very proud moment for Mike Scott, it seems, on Twitter. So Furkan does come from the school of Mike Scott, and we love to see that energy from him. I've seen a lot of people kind of comment on he's been in Philly for too long. He doesn't put up with this stuff anymore, which I love. So I'm hoping to see maybe a little bit more of that coming in this offseason. But man, what a disaster over there to allow 3 players to jump Furkan and his conditioning trainer in the alleyways of the Georgian basketball arena. Like that's insanity. So obviously, I want the footage to come out. I'd like to see some video of a Furkan street fight. See what he's got in the bag there. Maybe maybe he's better served to fight for his country in the ring. So we'll see. I hope everything works out for him. And the Pacers play in Philadelphia on October 24th. So I'd like Goga Bitadze to be welcomed pretty poorly when he gets here.
Oh yeah, I think we can count on that for sure.
Yeah.
And shout out Furkan Korkmaz for tweeting a whole bunch of this.
Yeah.
Always on top of all the Turkey stuff, all the Sixer stuff, and Furkan Korkmaz stuff. So a ton of great updates there. He also did a report that Furkan was at shoot around this morning, so seems to be fine. Condition, no serious injuries. And also this last quote from Furkan, which I just absolutely love. From Furkan Korkmaz, quote, "I am not anybody to talk shit on my face. I'm not going to let that happen." So just great stuff. You gotta love it.
Unbelievable, man. What a quote. You should get that tattooed or something, man. The Sixers better print that out and put that up on the walls. That's got to be their energy all year. That's hilarious, man. It's just coming from him. It just is so hilarious. And I saw some other guys where Niang tweeted at him today. Did PJ Tucker say something too?
I didn't see Tucker.
Somebody tweeted something like, "You need backup over there."
That was
something Niang, and then there was someone else was saying some stuff too. So it was nice to see some of the Sixers come to Furkan's aid as well.
Definitely, yeah. In kind of the mix of this, as this was all coming out, he just tweeted out a couple of the Turkish flag emojis, which also great move. And that's what I saw Niang quote tweet and just said you need help over there. So good to see everybody getting involved. Glad that Furk's okay, but definitely a crazy storyline, and I think there'll be more coming out on it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be something to keep an eye out for in the coming weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't even know. Do you know what's going on over there? I've seen a lot of the highlights from these tournaments. Is it just
it's the FIBA international play?
Okay.
I don't officially know. I know that. I've watched here and there a couple games, which have been fun. Maybe kind of the biggest star. I saw Luka play a little bit. Saw Giannis. It's spectacular to watch these guys on this kind of stage. It was definitely interesting with Giannis too, because it's not really a mix of. It's not his style of play. I would say the NBA fits him significantly more, but he still is so special that he finds a way to make his impact. So it is cool to see these guys playing in a different setting.
Absolutely. And to see them go head to head too. You saw the Jokic and Giannis playing against each other, and Luka is just incredible on so many levels, and it's crazy to see them play because obviously, they're on a different level than most of these guys, and some of the European guys can definitely hang and play, but Luka's just different, and Giannis is just different, and Jokic is just different, and even Furkan and Cedi Osman are out there dominating, so it's pretty cool to see, and I'm happy that those guys are getting the chance to play again, and it just is proving how international this game is and how basketball has become so worldwide, just dominant. You're seeing 3 of the top 5 players in the league playing, for their respective country. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And last thing we kind of wanted to touch on here, I figured we'll kind of probably be on the same side here, but just some continued whispers about backup center with the Sixers and guys that are out there. DeMarcus Cousins and Hassan Whiteside have gotten the most buzz. Both very good options as far as what is available at this stage in free agency. Sixers obviously already have 16 roster players for 15 roster spots, which needs to be fixed ahead of the start of the regular season. But would you have any interest in them bringing in another guy to play backup center or roll with the B-Ball Paul and Charles Bassey show as of now?
So I think it's gonna have to follow 2 steps. I think it's worth it to bring somebody on if the role is clear, and if it's Cousins or Whiteside or whoever it may be. If they understand what their role is going to be coming in and are okay with playing that role, and if that role is playing basically the third option at the center minutes because eventually there's going to be nights where you need another guy to play, and uh, you know do you need four centers on a roster? Probably not if you're counting Reed as a center. So coming into the season, I'd prefer Reed and Bassey to be the options coming in. But if a guy like Cousins, wants to play for a competitive team, wants to play for a team that could contend for a championship, and on every so often he can come out and play. Like DeMarcus Cousins played well last year.
Yeah,
He still has some in the tank, and I think that another veteran, another guy that's in the category of like having the dog in him and not putting up with any shit. Like I think DeMarcus Cousins fits the bill there. So if it was one or the other, I'm definitely going Cousins, but I don't think it's a necessary thing to happen right now. But like again, I don't think if you're a team like the Sixers coming into the season, you want to win. You want to use every roster spot for a player that could help you win, right? So like,
yeah.
as much as you like some of these guys down towards the end of the roster, down towards the end of that list, like I might prefer DeMarcus Cousins to some of those guys. I think it just depends on the situation they're in.
Yeah, Boogie definitely intrigues me the most out of probably any backup center we have. Like even
Yeah.
like we were excited about the Dwight Howard signing, we were excited about the Andre Drummond signing, but neither one of those guys would have been playable playoff players. Like even with the Nets and
Right.
the 4 games that they did have, like Andre Drummond was bad in the postseason, and I know
Yeah.
everybody was rooting for a reunion. I was very against that because I don't think he's a postseason player. That's been like my pro to B-ball Paul is I think he is a guy that can play in the playoffs. I think he's versatile enough in his game. The stuff that he does apply to that postseason setting. I don't know how I feel about Whiteside. I don't think is, which to me
No.
is stay away. He's a guy that still is very a fairly elite shot blocker, terrific rebounder. I believe he was third in the NBA in rebounds per 36 last year, which is impressive. And he actually was very good as a backup to Gobert with the Jazz. And DeMarcus Cousins, like you said, he was also very good last year. And he also impressed me as a passer. He kind of ran
Yeah.
like the Jokic role with that second unit, which is a tough ask for a backup center. And I thought Boogie did very well at it. I think that's going to be a noticeable knockoff from the Nuggets last year, going from DeMarcus Cousins to DeAndre Jordan is quite the gap. I think significantly more than what they're accounting for. And still crazy that DeAndre Jordan went off the free agency board like 30 seconds in this year. I will never get over that. But as far as like the Sixers, I'm kind of the mindset with like the pros to adding these guys is just as like an innings eater pitcher. Like we know that like he's not gonna like be suiting up night in, night out just because he needs to load manage. He's got his injury issues, everything that comes along with it. So if you want a guy to step in and start, like I get the appeal of that. But I also I want to see exactly what B-Ball Paul and Charles Bassey are. And like if you sign one of these guys, Doc Rivers is absolutely going to play him. We're never going to know. So I kind of think like you go into the season with Bassey and Reed. If that like they're not good enough and there needs to be another option, you can kind of always find like a backup center or a guy on the market like a DeAndre Jordan, like one of these kind of fallen off guys. So I personally would rather just keep the roster as it is, find a way to get Trevlin Queen on this roster, please, and keep not soak up another roster spot for another center.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm of that same mindset as well. But if there is like the necessity, like Doc Rivers has to have the guy to play that old man role in the backup center, and if the role is clear of like, hey, when the time comes and we need you, like be ready, but just understand that time may not come as often as before. I think that's like a fair situation to be in, and if either of these guys find themselves in a position coming into the season where they don't have a job, like sometimes that role is better than, it's definitely always better than to have that role than no job at all. So I think that's, it's a fine spot to be in. And Hassan Whiteside would be fine. Like it really just depends on what their preference is. But like you said, like seeing Bassey be working with Harden in, LA and what they've been doing and seeing Bassey working out every day. And then obviously like the hype that you and I have and a lot of the Sixers fan base has around Paul Reed coming into this year. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't at least give them the chance to prove themselves, make it or break it. Like if I think for Reed, it definitely is. For Bass, he's still pretty young, but like the chopping block is there. I think both of those guys have a chance to either win or lose the spot. And if they can both play well, like there you go, you have two backup centers that can play and two guys that are athletic enough to hang. So I really want to see what they come into this year with. And, I think you and I are of the same thinking there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would suck to go through another year and not really know like what these guys are or what they can be. Like, let's just see it. Let's roll it out. Let's see if we can handle it. And like, if that's not the case, if neither one of these guys are good enough, which I don't think is the case. I think Paul Reed, like the concerns with Paul Reed, I think are just so fixable. It's all stuff that like with more minutes, he's going to get the cutting down on fouls to just overall kind of frantic all over the place kind of state that he's in a lot. Like I think that kind of stuff's going to settle down with just the more he does it, the more repetition, the more play. So like he's not going to get that by bringing in a DeMarcus Cousins or Hassan Whiteside. So I would rather at least start the season. Let's see what we got with these guys and roll from there. But I don't know. I also was like, I've been all in on like the consolidation trade with Furkan and Matisse for another role player.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can trade Furkan anymore, man.
Yeah, I think we got to keep him.
Yeah.
I think they got to keep him just for vibes, man.
Yeah.
I think continuity is important. And for him, what he brings, he's just a goober. And it seems like a team favorite guy, like a guy that everyone loves to have around. He's Embiid's longest tenured teammate, so why not keep him around? Let him see. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll add a little bit this year. And I think his role got screwed up a handful of times last year. I'm not saying I believe in Furkan in a way that like he's going to be a major impact player at all, but like if he could be just like better than he was last year, like he'll sprinkle in some regular season minutes. So
Yeah.
And he's Matisse's friend, so if you're keeping Matisse, you got to keep him too.
Yeah, I'm more willing to trade Matisse than Furkan at this point, especially following this weekend. We got the scrap in him now, and the
Yeah.
skill set that he has, like we say this all the time, but the skill set that he has is super necessary on this team. He just has to be able to do it at a higher level. So who knows?
Which
maybe
he's proven he can do. He has proven before.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows? At the end of the day, we'll see if anything's more to shake out. I'm pretty content with kind of how the roster's at. I still would be open to that sort of trade, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think this roster, I don't expect anything to change. That Mitchell and the trade, the way that trade played out, like I think that kind of locked up the Sixers off season, and I'm totally cool with that. So we're just, man, I'm super excited. Like I keep saying it, and I was just talking with my roommates about it as well. Like I can't wait for Sixers basketball. But we're still a little bit away, so I'm trying to stay tame here.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that's all we got from me and James here today. So I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Make sure to drop a subscribe on the channel if you have not already. Drop a like and a comment, let us know what you guys think as well. But stay tuned. There's going to be a whole bunch more coming with NFL content from Ryan this week and baseball guy, everybody else on the channel that you guys know. So make sure to tune in, and we will get back with you next time.